welcome back for part two of our energy episode. I'm Kate.
And I'm Katie.
Whew, we got a lot to talk about. we
Let's jump right in.
got to jump right in. So, oh my goodness. It amazes me how much there is to talk about. That's why I was laughing. I was like, I can't believe we talked almost for an hour just about setting intention and energy and
Yeah,
protection.
it's such
Like,
an
wow.
important part. Such an
It
important
really
part.
is. So I definitely feel like we set the stage. Now we're going to talk about different types of energy. So I don't know. I kind of want to ask you, what do you think, Katie? And then I'll give my answer. How does someone know if they are sensitive to energies?
That's so hard to answer. um, I think you know because you pick up on things like when someone else is feeling something intensely, you
Mhm.
also share that feeling or part of it. You have
Mhm.
your empathy, or I don't want to use sympathy. It's not really sympathy, but it's empathy, like you're feeling what that person's feeling as they're going through it.
Mhm.
For me, and this has happened consistently my whole driving career. Anytime I drive past an
Mhm.
animal that has been run over or is dead on the side of the road, I get bottom to top spine shivers every time.
Oh wow.
Period. I can't avoid it. It happens every single time. I just have this intense awareness of what their body went through. That's a lot.
Ugh, that's a lot.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think it's, a lot of things that today people would say, like I said in like one of our first episodes, like, you're an idiot. Why are you acting like that over something so simple? Why are you so upset? Why are you, when you're questioning the things of like, man, I'm picking up on something right now, or like even like meeting someone new and you just get a gist of what you feel like their vibe is as a person.
Mhm.
And I've had this go where
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a person I want to be around. And that's a person that, like, I don't trust that person. I just have
Mhm.
a sense of who they are without knowing who they are. I don't know them. I
Yeah.
don't know who they are, but I have a sense of it. And I don't know
Yeah.
how else to really describe it. What about you? You
Yeah.
probably have a better way to explain it than me.
No, I wouldn't say better. I'd just say it's going to be different because we're different people. So we've experienced it differently and similarly in some ways. I would say if we're checking out again, mundane and before magical, if we now anxiety and having clairs can coincide because clair having the sensitivity to energies that's what I mean when I say clairs can produce anxiety, especially when you're young and you don't know what the heck is this information that I'm receiving? So I think if we check out, mental health and all of that good stuff, and you still, or a history, right? Like a case history, person has never been to war. They don't have PTSD from moments in their life. They can't explain it. But when they get into a room full of people, they experience paralyzing anxiety. That can be a sensitivity to energies because you're picking up everyone else's stuff. I struggle with that, especially when I go out to eat, when I'm in a theater, when I'm in crowds of people. And there's really nothing that has occurred in my present day life that would explain that, right? And I've been checked out for all that kind of stuff. So, like you said, a knowing. You don't know how you know, but you know that that person's a little shady. Or maybe you should go a different route home or get to your car quickly when walking. And it's like, some of that can be, all right, maybe I'm in a bad area, and I should get to my car and lock it. But some of it is like, I'm in a place I've always been, and I just have a feeling that something's going to happen and it's going to pop off, and I need to get home. So I think it's those things that we can't necessarily explain. And then when we look back, we're like, oh my gosh, I was right. I
Yeah.
was right about that person. I had a feeling, that gut feeling. So those are all um, what I and a lot of other people in the spiritual community dub the clairs. Now, there are four main clairs. They are claircognizance, clairvoyance, clairsentience, and clairaudience. I'm going to talk about each of those a little bit. When we say clair, spelled CLAIR, that means clear. So it's the prefix that means clear in the English language. So when we say claircognizance, clear thinking, that is when you just, like Katie said, you just know. You can't explain how you just know. You just know the answer. It just comes to you. Clairvoyance, clear seeing. That's when you experience vision. We've talked about both of us experiencing vision. For me,
Mm.
it's like watching a movie or like slides on a screen or a picture in my mind. The claircognizance for me is I just know the answer. Like I can't explain it. It just comes to me. Clairsentience, clear feeling. It could be a gut feeling that you get before something happens. You had a gut feeling that something bad was gonna happen and then it happened, right? Or that someone was in trouble. Or like as a parent, your kid's somewhere they shouldn't be, but you really had no reason to believe that, or there's something wrong going on. They're at school or whatever. That's just a gut feeling or prickling on your arms or your hair standing up on the back of your head. Just have that feeling. Clairaudience, clear hearing. So far checking out hallucination and schizophrenia. Clairaudience is you hear. It's like someone is literally talking in your ear. Sometimes it can be an ear depending on you and how you've kind of sussed out what those mean. But again, like we always say, check out your mental health and make sure that it's nothing else that we need to be concerned about. But those are the four main clairs, and it's just a way of getting information. Often, many psychics or mediums will be using the clairs to glean information if someone's having a reading or if they're using their gifts to solve mysteries and or crimes. You'll hear about people being like, I saw it happen right, like it unfolded right in front of my eyes, like a movie. They would be using clairvoyance, right? Or I know this is where this happened. And then he went that way, right? Or she went that way. That's just claircognizance, right? Now, there are other minor clairs that you can experience. I talked about in the first episode how I smelled. So that is clair aliens or clair olfaction, clear smelling, where you literally smell. Now, the brain can remember smells. It could be a stress response. Sometimes you hear about people having a stroke and they smell burnt toast. So we're checking out all of that stuff. Pretty sure I didn't have a stroke at that point, right? And I literally smelled the flowers that were at my grandmother's funeral. Like I smelled them so clearly, like I was in that room. And this was a month or two later. I've smelled that smell before, like in other situations in my life, post, my grandmother passing. So just saying. Clairgustance, you can actually physically taste. You taste the food, or you taste like a taste that like you have to like you'd be like, why would I taste that right now? I'm not licking a metal pipe, you know what I mean? But I taste metallic, and it's not like a vitamin deficiency or anything like that. Um, Katie talked about clairtangency. So that is technically psychometry, and that is when you literally can touch something. It might have belonged to somebody else. You might not have any idea that it belonged to someone else, or you touch a wall in a building and you just know stuff. You're gleaning information from whatever object you're touching. Psychics also or mediums use that if they do a walkthrough of a house, or maybe you'll see it maybe if you've ever watched things that are on E or whatever, and they're psychic mediums. People will bring belongings of their loved ones. That psychic medium will touch it, and the person won't tell them anything about who this belonged to, but they'll know. They'll know things about them just from touching the object. And then there's Claire kinesthesia.
Hey guys, it is Kate here. I just have a little amendment to clairkinesthesia. So, clairkinesthesia is when you can feel things with no physical presence. So, you walk into a room and you might feel something brush against your hand. That is clairkinesthesia. So, that is clear touch. And I've experienced that too. I've had things run up and brush against me. It can be a little weird, but it's all part of this using your extrasensory and some of your gifts. Hope that helps.
So I think all of these are just ways that you are sensitive to energy. And Katie, now that I've described some of these, you can or not answer. Would you say that you feel like you experience some of this stuff? Because
Interesting.
I'll say after you say
I was gonna ask you the
you
same
can ask
thing, like
me.
which ones. Well, let me ask you a question first. Do you think someone who becomes sensitive to the energy worlds that we're talking about, do you think they have the capability of having all of the clairs, or do you think certain people pick up on certain clairs based off of their, I don't know, self?
I think both. I think there
Okay.
are people out there who have it all. It's just not common.
They have it all. I don't have it all, but um yeah, so I might forget which one's called what, but I
Mhm.
am foremost visual person. I'm a seer, period. Um, so I see things in vision form, just as exactly how you described. Um, it seems like an old video film, right?
Mm,
Or it comes to me in snapshots. I get like an
interesting.
image of an item or thing or person. Um, but I will share, I'm sure, some of these experiences at some point. I don't I don't know
Yeah,
if we
we
have
will.
time today, but
That's
I've had
okay.
some really cool experiences with all that. So visual for sure. I'm not sure if this counts as which one is it? Like, man, I don't remember which one is which, so you might have to remind me.
Describe what it is. Just
I
describe it.
have been in situations where I've had conversations back and forth through the mind, not by the
Hmm.
mouth.
So like telepathy,
Not with people, with like spirit.
it goes past or spirit. I would definitely say that's clear audience.
Okay. So that I definitely
Hmm.
experience. Clear tangency, I think I do as well.
Hmm.
And I think that happens to me whether I want it or not. But that could be a
Yeah,
lack of
certainly.
protection and boundaries or understanding it really. But I get this
Hmm.
like attachments of energies to tangible things, homes, walls.
Oh,
I just get vibes immediately from things. I purposely have to disconnect from that, especially in areas that are like have a lot of activity
mm-hmm.
or may have a thinner veil, as you know, like we talked about before, or something like that.
Yes,
Yeah. So I think
totally
that's it.
common.
I
People with
think.
deep thing. Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah. Um, Definitely the four top ones for sure. I see vision. For me, it's like a movie, and I usually am in the place of an observer or the if it's something that's happened to someone, I'll see it like as it's unfolding from a certain perspective, essentially. Sometimes I'll just know. So claircognizance, sometimes the gut feeling, I get those a lot. They're not fun because my stomach gets upset. And then clairaudience, definitely thought I was going crazy there for a little bit because I would hear
Mm,
things that like it was weird, it was scary, and you're just like, what the heck is going on? But got checked, and it's that's what it is, you know. It's like a voice. Sometimes when I more often now than it was in the beginning when I do tarot, and it depends who I'm reading for. If there is someone that is coming through, they'll speak to me. I did a reading for a mom and a little girl, and I didn't know it at the time. It was her grandmother that came through, and it was actually her father's mother, and he had since passed. And her father's mother came through, and she told me about the little girl. She's like, ask her about her theater. I was like, do you like to do theater? And she's like, yeah, I love performing. And we just got to talking, and her mom started crying. I was like, is this your mom or is this, her dad's mom? And she's like, and my mom's still alive. So it's my deceased husband's mother. And I was like,
mm,
okay. And then, so it's definitely been happening more frequently. And you just try to confirm with the person. And most times when I do, it's someone that they definitely knew and wanted to talk
yeah.
to them. So
Mm,
there's that. And then, like I said, Claire aliens. So the smell is a very strong sense for me. I don't know so much about clairgustance. I wouldn't say that I'm like tasting strawberries, you know what I mean, or anything like that. Um, but the psychometry for sure as well. I don't know enough about clair kinesthesia to say yes or no. Um, but it's very interesting. Like you said, it can be. very overwhelming when you go into places and you're just being bombarded with information. And that's where the anxiety can come in. That's where the fear can come in when you don't understand it. And if there's like cultural things around you that says that that's evil, you know what I mean? It can be tough, but that's why we're here, to provide a safe space to tell you you're not crazy and you're not evil. And you can use these gifts to help people if you so desire. Or you can just learn to control them so you can help yourself. So.
Yeah.
So we definitely want to help those on their journey to feel more secure in however they glean information. And that's why we thought it was so important to talk about energy. And since we've kind of really covered that pretty solidly, this next part of the podcast is going to deal with energy healing, which Katie and I are both really into, correct?
Yeah.
So we're going to be touching on Reiki, aura healing / reading, and the chakra system, which is really kind of enmeshed within Reiki in and of itself, especially Usui Reiki. And Katie's working on her Reiki master, and I got my Reiki master May of last year, and now I've been a Reiki practitioner for some time, and it's a part of my practice, and I really, really, really love it. So the basic tenets of Reiki is that we are all connected to a universal source of energy. We have different names for it, but sometimes I think we forget that we are all interconnected, that there's synergy in between all of us. We can either be cut off from it in terms of our own consciousness, our own disbelief. We can be cut off of it due to trauma, due to injury to our actual physical bodies, if we are to believe in past lives. The trauma we've incurred or the karma that we've incurred from our past lives can also act as a barrier. And so, with Reiki and its tenets, it's about putting more positive energy out into there. It's about believing that healing occurs regardless of your belief in it or not. And the creator definitely had his own kind of vision. He may have been what we would call clairvoyant, and he had a vision about how to do Reiki, and he used certain symbols in his healing of people, and then he wanted to teach others how to open themselves up to access to source / healing energy. And so when you're being trained in Reiki, you towards the end basically of your actual classroom learning, you receive a set of attunements, and usually those are like 1 to 2, maybe even 3 attunements that you get. I actually received 2. So one from my actual teacher within the course that I took, and she took a lot of her teachings from Lisa Powers' course. And so I was also attuned by Lisa distance Reiki. So Lisa was not in the room with me. And people can experience a lot of different things. I tend to see vision and it feels very real. I tend to see lots of color, sensation, all of that stuff. But some people may only see color. Some people may only experience warmth or cold or a sensation. Other people could hear sounds. So whatever your experience, as long as it's conducive to your healing, I think is a good one. And there's no right or wrong experience really to have, unless it's scary or it's like the person is not ethical who's practicing. But the biggest thing with in my own practice of doing Reiki is one, scanning the auric field of the client who's laying on the table and wants to get treatment from me, scanning their chakra system, and then usually the first appointment that I tend to have with people is usually consists of clearing their aura and also working to bring more balance to their actual chakra systems. So chakras can become blocked, but they can also be depleted, or you can even have too much energy within chakras. And chakra is Sanskrit for wheel or spinning wheel, and your chakras are located along, you could say, along the medial line of the body, and they tend to be
located where there are either vital organs or a lot of endocrine glands. So thyroid gland is throat, right? So that's your throat chakra, and it's located right in there. Your heart chakra is located around your heart, and Katie's going to go more in depth with that. But it kind of makes sense when you look at the actual body. If we're looking for at a more Western medicine approach, it kind of makes sense where the chakras are. And I kind of see them as light and color because they each have their own color to them as well. They each actually have their own element, and I kind of see those, and that's how I
cool.
visualize them, which is, it's like a light comes on when they finally kind of reach where they need to be, and it's beautiful. And I'll see physical change when I'm actually working on someone. And what I do is I normally make physical contact with the person's body, whether that's their shoulders, maybe their tummy, obviously avoiding sensitive areas, obviously asking for permission to touch the client, because some people might not want to be touched. So you can always just hover over their body. And because I have sensitivity to energy through my hands, I do a lot of my healing work through my hands. I tend to feel, and I tend to feel temperature change. I tend to feel almost like if someone is really anxious, it'll almost be like electrical static or buzzing. If someone's depressed, their energy tends to feel really, really heavy. And of course, in the last episode that we filmed, or the last episode that we recorded, I'm protecting, so I'm not taking in any of their stuff. We remain separate. I remember I used to not be great at that, right? I used to take on other people's stuff, and it's very important if you are an energy worker that you have those protective measures every time, and you are setting that intention when that client comes in, so you are also protecting yourself, because you cannot help anyone if you yourself are taking on things that are not meant for you to take on. So I love Reiki so much. I'm looking to kind of teach my own course in the future and attune people once I get
love that for
a little
you.
more stuff behind me. I feel like I need to learn. And that's kind of my spiel, and maybe we'll talk more in depth about the history, but there's a lot to
and
that.
I can get into that a little bit now, but I just wanted to say,
Yeah.
like, how interesting it is. There's similarities and differences that I've experienced through Reiki practice for myself. Now, granted, I have to say I am only level 1 Reiki certified. I only did level 1. I only did that initially, if you listen to our other podcast, because I was like, what the F is this? It is some bullshit. But it changed my world. And then I was like, and you use that, I mean, and it's been a while. It's 2019 that I got this. 2019. It was 2 years after I started my journey, but I was just looking at it when you were talking about it. I was like, when did I get my so for me, it's interesting that I'm a visual person and I haven't experienced the light, at least not yet. I feel so much in my hands. Sometimes they feel like they're actually on fire. Like, it's crazy, because you basically like, to give you like an idea visual, because I'm visual, is when you're transferring energy, it's not coming from the practitioner. The practitioner is essentially the tool that gets the energy from the universe through a funnel, right? This is like an energy funnel that you are able to transfer and exchange or release or add or whatever you need to do to release it or bring it in from the universe, right? So that's what we're doing. We're just connecting energy. We're helping balance things. But I'm very like, the sensations are, when I get Reiki for myself and when I do Reiki, are intense. And every person, it's like I identify people, instead of having names, as like a short like boomerang video in my mind. Like, to give you some examples, I did Reiki on my dad once. And oh my God, this was so long ago. And he felt like I was putting my hand along a cold, mountainous like wall. Like, you know, if you imagine running your hand along stone, like natural forming stone, how it's cold, a little bit moist, and it's just rocky and rough. Like, that's how that aura felt to me. I can feel it. And then I've had people that it felt like just like a warm, lukewarm, still lake water. Like I was running my hand right above a lake. Like it's insane to me, right? I don't know why. And like every person's different, but
love
I
that,
get so
though.
much visual sensation
Yes.
from it. It's so interesting. And that's how I work through people. And that's how I
Yeah.
find the imbalances, because it tends to feel different in those areas than their natural aura does.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
clairtangency, baby. You're like that's the strongest one,
Maybe,
I think,
yeah. I
for
mean,
you,
that's how I am with my
probably.
cards.
It
That's, I
sounds
mean,
like.
everything.
Yeah.
So, woo, we can get all
Yeah.
into all.
Whereas
Yeah.
I'm more
Oh my
visual.
gosh, you go
Yeah.
crazy. Anyways, I thought
Yeah.
I would share that it's interesting that like it's similar things, but also like we pick up on different things. But yeah.
Very
And like
different.
Kate
Yeah.
had mentioned, you know, the chakras, we're really looking at different nodes and different areas of the body and how we can essentially connect parts of the body, really, how communication, how different organs and glands and things are communicating. And it's rooted in Buddhist practices. And it was developed from really early on scripture that was initially just taught to students verbally.
So with Usui Reiki, which was developed in probably about 100 years ago, so early 1900s, Mikao Usui was the one, he was Japanese, and he had, like I said, he had a vision and saw symbols, and Reiki loosely translates to, I believe, universal healing energy, like you had talked about. It's like us connecting to that and being a conduit of it for our clients, and reminding them that they are also connected. But the gist of this was just to back up what you said in terms of the Reiki practice was, I believe, only passed down orally for a while. And
Mm-hmm.
it was because it was so sacred, and like you needed to listen, you needed to remember what it was you were being taught, so then you could translate it and then effectively heal. So that's
Yeah.
what I wanted to
All
add.
of this is rooted in like super ancient practices before writing anything down was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they're just, it's channels of life force energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, throughout the body, connection to the universal energy. And we could talk forever about that alone, but,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, so the understanding of chakras as a system was popularized in 1919. So a little history here, which is not my favorite. I'm not good with history, but it's important to know.
Mm-hmm.
It was popularized in 1919 when the book The Serpent Power was written. It was written by Arthur Avalon, which was a pseudonym for a guy named Sir John Woodruff. Woodruff. I probably am saying it wrong, but he developed this concept based off of his translation of texts and practices when he was living in Eastern culture in India. He was in India. And then in addition to that, that was the time period where, you know, we were kind of at a boom with psychology and looking at the inner world, not just the outer world. And Carl Jung, he's, you know, a really famous psychiatrist and psychoanalyst that any psychology majors or anyone interested in psychology out there has absolutely heard of Carl Jung.
Mm-hmm.
And Carl Jung, he lived from like the late 1800s and died in 1961. And he was really well known for writing The Collective Unconscious, but he had a lot of contributions to the psychology world, right? But these the ideas of introverted, extroverted, things like that came from Carl Jung. So Carl Jung kind of westernized that understanding of chakra energy and the Kundalini energy that we understand in Western culture now. Now, all of this is coming from our interpretation of Eastern culture practices. So, by no means is it exact. And in a lot of ways, it's been changed and developed to fit fads and what people like and things like that. So, I mean, that just comes down to being culturally sensitive, like Kate and I are always pushing to do and to encourage
Mm-hmm.
others to do, right? So,
Yes.
you know, this all stems from a much bigger, deeper, ancient practice than we could really understand. But Kundalini energy is like the energy that gets trapped in the base of your spine from life, all the things in life. They visualize it as a serpent or like a snake that kind of gets wrapped up and entangled in your pelvic area, your lower spine, to which we need to stretch out. And that's just kind of how they explain it then. But that's a little bit of history for you. And then talking about chakras, when we start looking at the actual application of it, and you got into this a little bit, we're looking at a lot of different glands and a lot of different body parts here. The endocrine system is something that is talked about a lot with the chakra system, and that is the chemical and hormonal communication in our body between our body parts. And that's so important. And in literature, we don't know that much about it.
Yeah,
we know
so
a little
complex.
bit, but we don't know that much.
And it literally forms our personalities, because your hormones are literally part of who you are.
Yeah. I mean, and it affects a lot of behavior, mood, all kinds of things. I've seen it in the world of psychiatry when I was working inpatient. I mean, it's, hormones can have a huge impact on your life. So with that, imbalances across these communications between glands and body parts, if you think about it, that's going to fuck some shit up. Right?
That's the technical term. Yeah.
That's gonna fuck some shit up. So
it can make you feel disjointed.
Yeah. And then obviously, as we always push, if you have issues related to hormones, you have imbalances, always see a professional, especially when it comes to the chemical and hormonal movements in the body, right? Because there's medications, all kinds of stuff out there. But be aware, there's still not a lot that we know as humans about this. So definitely seek and rule out any medical concerns first. But Reiki is an alternative to balancing some of this communication. And honestly, this is a side note, and based off of just my experience and opinion, how much it's probably related to our stress imbalances. And that's a hormone, right? That we are looking at.
Baby.
Yeah, we're looking at the communication of cortisol, dopamine levels, everything like that we know changes and affects our brain are things that can absolutely affect our hormone balance or communications across different organs. If our organs aren't functioning at their best, if it's one and not all, how is that affecting the system, right? So Reiki is just one way that we use energy work to put healing in the places they need to be.
Exactly.
And it sounds like a load of garbage. It really does when you say it all. For someone who, not for us, but for someone who's maybe new to it, yeah, it does. Like, how are you going to fix my insides by hovering your hands over me? It seems like it could look suspicious. Once you experience it, it just puts you in a very different state of equilibrium. And we're always searching for equilibrium. So Reiki, balancing chakras, aura healing, all of that stuff. So if we're looking at the different types of, or different levels or different places that you can find these chakra nodes, we're looking at, we'll go from the bottom up, the root chakra. The root chakra is related to excretion. The color that is related to that is the color of red. It's related to the element of earth and the body sense of smell. And the endocrine glands that are associated are the testes or ovaries.
And it's our sense of security in the world. It can be rooted. The metaphysical side of it is security, money, kind of how we're feeling safe, essentially, in our world.
The sacral chakra is related to the color orange, the element of water, the body sense of taste, and the endocrine gland, the adrenals. It is also known to be related to reproduction, which is interesting since the base is the testes and ovaries. So I'm not sure if or how that's separated.
I think it's more sexuality than actual reproduction and creativity, because those are two sides of the same coin. Yeah.
So then we get the solar plexus. Solar plexus is the next one up, and it is yellow, associated with yellow, the element of fire, the body sense of sight, and the endocrine gland, the pancreas, and is also associated when we do Reiki and stuff like that with digestion. Then we have the heart. That's related to either green or pink, sometimes a little bit of both. I'm sure Kate has experienced those colors. The element of air, the body sense of touch, and the endocrine gland, the thymus. And the heart is responsible for the circulation of our blood. So the main healing component is circulation with the heart.
Metaphysically, it's joy, it is love, and it can be blocked by shame, grief. And then solar plexus is confidence, your vitality, and that can be blocked by just, I guess, the opposite of confidence. The again, shame as well. I think not being who you're able to be and shining the light. So.
Our throat chakra, which is related to respiration, breathing, things like that. It is the color turquoise, element ether or akasha.
Akasha.
I'm not sure. Akasha. The body sense of hearing, and the endocrine gland, the thyroid, and the parathyroids.
Your voice.
Yeah. And then we have the brow, or also known as the third eye. And that's associated with the color deep blue, the element of spirit, the body sense, extra sensory perception, and endocrine gland is pituitary. And this area we focus on with cognition, thought, the clairs, even maybe opening that
the clairs
up.
For sure. Clairvoyance, baby.
And then the top highest chakra is the crown chakra. And that one is associated specifically with the brain, separate from cognition, with the color violet, sometimes gold, the element spirit, and the endocrine gland, the pineal gland. So that's kind of our overview. Obviously, there's a lot to each of those. I definitely encourage you to explore more. I recommend this book. It's called The Chakra Bible by Patricia Mercier. It was something recommended to me early on in my journey when I was asking more questions about the chakra. I like it. It's easy to read, but it also talks about a lot of really cool other things related to balancing the chakras. But, yeah. Do you have anything, Kate, that you want to add to the overview, very quick overview we did of the chakra system?
I mean, yeah, I don't want to bog us down too much. I think that this is something we can definitely dive into more deeply, especially discussing more of like what blocks, what opens, exercises you can do for each chakra, mantras that are good for chakras. There's color therapy that we can do for chakra healing, and each chakra has its own frequency. So I think those would all be very interesting to go into, because I've done an extensive meditation for chakra healing for myself. So, and it's helped. It's really cool.
I know very little. I know very little, but
it's okay.
It's pretty cool to me though. I still have a lot to learn, and I'm excited to learn. That kind of goes into a little bit more of what I want to talk about with where we can go from there. We talked about Reiki for a little bit. We've talked about the chakra systems, some other forms of energy healing to me, and these are the most powerful in my life, is sound therapy, yoga, and meditation. So with sound therapy, yoga and meditation, actually, it helps lower your blood pressure, and it activates your parasympathetic nervous system. And your parasympathetic nervous system is what controls your relaxing, not just in states of like crisis where your cortisol is really high or your stress is really high or fight or flight or freeze or fawn comes into play, but in situations too, in just everyday life. Your parasympathetic is what helps you calm the fuck down. And if you remember in high school health class, rest and digest. Rest and digest. That's what we were taught. And I was, as soon as I was reading that, I was like, yep, that just took me back.
Yeah. And then sympathetics, fight, flight, fawn, freeze, right?
Yep. And even someone that I like very much respect just uses fight or flight. it perturbs me on a deep level, because
Yeah.
when I experience like deep, and I have to get over it, and that's something I work on with myself, and I do. You know, because sometimes I just have
Yeah.
to talk.
Yeah.
I just have to say something. But I'm better with that now. It's so much more than that. When I
That's
experienced
okay.
the traumas that I've shared, you know, briefly in our previous podcast episodes, I didn't experience fight and I didn't experience flight. I experienced freeze, and I had a lot of guilt around that. So when people do not talk about freeze or fawn, it just makes me mad, because there's so much more than just fight or flight. But anyway.
I understand. Absolutely. Your body was doing what it felt was right to survive, because sometimes freeze is very appropriate and it keeps us alive. And there is no shame in that at all. So,
yeah, and the only way to
thing.
kind of move yourself out of getting stuck there or in those situations is by practice. That's something I am working on in therapy currently. So,
love that. Yeah.
It's happened to me multiple times in my life. I was touched inappropriately on an airplane by the guy sitting next to me, and I didn't know what to do. I froze. Everyone's like, "Oh, you should have said something. You should have told the stewardess so you could move. You should have told him to stop touching you." But I didn't know how, and then I was like, "What if I'm misinterpreting what's happening?"
Exactly.
What the hell?
Yeah, I experienced that with a doctor.
What the hell? And then you feel guilty because you're like, I must be misunderstanding what's happening.
That didn't happen. He was doing what he was supposed to be doing. Like in my situation.
Yeah, maybe he's looking for something that dropped. Maybe he thought it fell under my leg, or he's not realizing that's my leg. And then like all these thoughts go through your head.
Exactly.
And then you're like, I'm on an airplane, or I'm in this position where I'm in a doctor's office room, and I don't want to make a scene either, and then be wrong.
Like, well, he's a doctor. He's supposed to be helping me. He was just doing what he was doing to help me. And it's a very vulnerable situation you're in when you're in a doctor's office and they're examining you. And you would never imagine that someone who took an oath to help and not hurt would do something like that and overstep their boundaries. But people do it all the time. And I didn't say anything. Yeah. And I didn't say anything, right? So all you can do is learn and not beat yourself up. And the next time it happens, you better be sure I'm going to say something, right?
You say that.
Yeah.
You cannot. People will tell you this about crisis situations. This happens with trauma too, or these unforeseen circumstances that happen in our life.
I mean, you never know how you're truly going to react.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. And not just that, like you think, oh, I experienced this already, I'll be prepared for it if it happens again. Not true. You have zero control over, or not you, but I have had zero control over my body's response to these things, which means I need to work on that control in small ways in my everyday life. So anyway, that could be a topic too that we talk about later on, but just wanted to go there for a second.
Yeah.
We go deep as usual. So with sound therapy, back to the good stuff, with sound therapy, you can also think of it as music therapy. Music therapy is a thing too, where we're looking at auditory and vibration, and their input and their influence on our body. Could be vibroacoustic music therapy, sound therapy. Sound therapy, I think of more to be specific to singing bowls and chimes and gongs and things like that are really specifically made for that meditation process. But
it's so cool.
It is
so cool.
Amazing.
How it can help.
It's like life-changing to me. It will be something that I have in my practice one day. It will be. But if you think about how the body is formed, and I do want to preface, like, I am in no way a scientist. I am in no way a physicist. I am in no way a bio whoever. Like, I know very little about these things, but I'm sharing what I do know.
I'll share to back you up.
Okay, perfect. So when we're discussing the body, I mean, we're made up of atoms, and atoms are vibrating, and that includes our internal organs and body parts and every part of us. So if we start looking at when things start to feel uncomfortable, even simple things like bloating, indigestion, heartburn, I'm thinking kidney stones, urinary tract infection. I'm just naming some of like the big common ones, right? When we start experiencing these things in our body, this creates blockages. This creates discommunication between the chemicals and hormones across our body. So when we're looking at vibration therapy, we're looking at something that creates an equilibrium across your whole body. Some people find benefits from doing music and vibration therapy virtually or by just listening to it through some kind of device, which is great. But I don't know the research behind that, but I can say, like, from my experiences, that is different than being in a room where those instruments are creating that sound in your space. And
you're
that,
actually feeling the vibration.
yeah, you're not feeling that vibration when you're doing it virtually, but there, I'm sure, are still calming and stress reducing benefits.
Yes. I've experienced those for sure. Doing like a virtual type, whether it's through YouTube, I definitely feel, but maybe it might be because I'm also a little extrasensory sensitive. So I feel it, but at the same time, I know it's still not the same, like you're saying, as if I were to go to your yoga studio and you would be banging the gong. It would be different and maybe a little more intense. But like you said, I still feel like I get benefits from pulling up a YouTube video and doing a frequency video.
Yeah. Yeah. If you think about how, when you are in a room of four walls, even if there are other people and other things in your space, you create this almost like vortex where this energy coming from these instruments are circling you and bouncing off of the walls, but they're staying in that space. And they create this bath, which is why I think they say gong
Yeah.
bath. It creates
Oh, I
this
love it.
vibrational bath for your body, just like we adjust to temperatures, we adjust to a lot of things in our environments, we adjust to the vibrations on a deep level. And if you think about the vibration of the atoms in your kidney or your bladder or your stomach or your intestines, wherever you're having that discomfort or blockage or whatever's going on, and that becomes equalized, now we've opened up that communication system of hormones and the chemicals that are needed to communicate in your body to flow effortlessly where they need to go. So there is a level of understanding that this could be a healing technique. I have found it extremely healing, not just mentally, but for physical things as well. But that's not to say these are serious illnesses that require medical assistance, right? Again, always seek.
That's why it's a complementary. That's why it's complementary. It's in conjunction with other modes of quote unquote Western medicine, right? That is working with your chemical physiology.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's any less powerful though.
Outside of that, not just the chemical and hormonal exchanges in your body, but what about brain waves and how those work?
Yeah,
Well,
gets you in that theta state.
There's a lot of research out there on this, with especially meditation. Meditation is something that is used in a lot of different medical facilities to treat things like PTSD, to treat things like anxiety, depression. MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction. That's a legitimate practice. That a lot of it was designed to help veterans who come back and experience symptoms of PTSD and other related disorders. But anyway, so if we're looking at how it affects our brain waves, it changes them and adapts them to become to a more relaxed state, or what we would look at as alpha waves. There are different brain waves that occur depending on how active our mind is throughout the day or at nighttime when we're sleeping. And that's how they determine different levels of sleep. What stage of sleep that you're in is based off of these brain levels and how active that your brain is or is not. that kind of sums up sound therapy and meditation. But with yoga, that's something that's based off of ancient practices, something I have mentioned throughout today. You know, there's modern yoga where we think about just the physical part, and then there's the traditional, more historic practice of yoga, which includes a lot of different guides to living. So ethics, physical practice, but also breath work and meditation as well. More westernized culture looks at it more of a physical standpoint, but it is much more than that. But that's all I have for that. So we've talked about, again, Reiki. We've talked about aura healing. We've talked about chakras. We've talked about sound therapy, yoga, meditation. And the last piece we're going to talk about today for healing practices is crystals. And I thought it would be important to just mention some of the differences between crystals and rocks and stones and gems and minerals and all that. Because a lot of times we don't know that. And we're just out here like, oh, pretty crystals. Everyone likes crystals. Crystals are healing. But how are they different from a rock? A stone is a small rock. And a rock is a mixture of minerals from sediment, igneous rocks, which is formed from magma, or metamorphic processes like heat, pressure, fluids like water, things like that. A mineral has specific crystalline structure on its own and is naturally occurring. Some examples are sulfur, basalt, granite, limestone, sandstone, quartz, and it forms naturally with changes in temperature and various interactions with water. Sometimes naturally occurring, sometimes not. It could be water flow that was produced by mankind that created pressure, temperature changes in rock, things like that. Now, as you heard, I did mention quartz. So a lot of the crystals we're familiar with are formed from these types of minerals. So before I get into that, though, gems, so gems like gemstones, we think about emeralds and rubies and diamonds. Those they differ in their geometric arrangement of the
More
atoms
refined.
of the gem, and they're usually rare and or semi-precious minerals like amber, opal, glass that we find and we cut and we polish and we make jewelry with. So that's kind of the distinction between those. So stone, minerals, and gems. Crystals have specific repeated patterns or geometric arrangements in them. Crystals form from these natural occurring minerals and stone that gets subjected to all of these changes in our environment, water flow, heat, magma, things like that. So amethyst. Amethyst is a type of quartz. Amethyst, its chemical makeup is composed of something called silicon dioxide. Quartz is formed from lava, specifically when gas bubbles become trapped, allowing crystals to form inside the cavities created by these bubbles. And then citrine, natural occurring citrine is formed by the gradual heating of amethyst. So citrine comes from amethyst. I thought this was interesting when I learned this because citrine and amethyst are two of my favorite crystals. And and citrine comes from amethyst. Yeah. So essentially, citrine is like the grandchild of quartz, and it forms under high temperatures in the Earth's crust. The next example I have two more, is chalcedony. I love chalcedony. Chalcedony is so pretty, and it can be a bright green, which I really like, but it can be a lot of different colors. I like it's a blue. The chalcedony forms when silica-rich water percolates through rocks and deposits tiny silica particles in cavities and fractures. It can occur in a variety of colors and patterns depending on the impurities and minerals presented in the deposit. And my last one is turquoise. Turquoise forms where mineral-rich water seeps into rocky gaps. And over time, only the minerals that remain makes turquoise. The copper in turquoise is what gives it its shade of blue or green, the amount of copper.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. So, crystals, it's important to understand where they come from.
Exactly. And crystals have different properties, sometimes depending on the way that their atoms and or geometric shape, or what's called a lattice, forms within their crystalline structure. So every crystalline structure has the ability to discharge or channel energy. If you were to take, technically what should happen, if you were to take two quartz stones and like a lot of friction and rub them together, it should emit light, because crystals have an ability to discharge energy, which is called the piezoelectric effect. And they discharge energy when you put pressure on them. So with that rationale, pressure can be touch. So when you place crystals on someone's body, when you hold a crystal in your hand, that effect can be discharged, which is what technically we could say gives a crystal its metaphysical properties. And then you kind of go into the metaphysical meanings of different crystals, and that's just a whole nother can of worms that we can open up. But they can be used. I've used, and I think Katie has too, I've used crystals in my healing work as far as Reiki goes. Meditation, I've meditated with crystals and had some pretty profound experiences. They can enhance your mood. They can be used for protection. And in a book that I utilized, one, to create a class that I made about crystals, which I got from, oddly enough, Five Below, and it's called Healing Crystals, Discover the Therapeutic Power of Crystals by Karen Ryan. I joked in the class that I should receive commission from this book because I was telling everyone about it because it's very interesting. There are things in this book that you may or may not believe in and or agree with, but I still think it's really important to look. Another great book for if you are really into crystals, because crystals is where I first leapt into my metaphysical journey. The Encyclopedia of Crystals by Judy Hall. This is like the Bible for crystal lovers, and it gives a very thorough and color-coded guide to different crystals, their lattice structure, which will tell you a lot about what you can use the crystal for when you know its lattice structure, its shape, and its form, which is very interesting. And then finally, another great book is Crystal for Beginners, by Karen Fraser. And I believe this one has actual grids. It might be this one. Actually, I might be lying. I think it does have grids if you are interested in crystal grids, which are also another very interesting topic we can talk about. And I also use this for the pictures and the visual.
I love that
as well.
I was curious to see if you would have the same book as me. I have one too that I recommend that I really like, just for like a general like reference. Crystal Energy by Mary Lambert.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's important. Yeah, I think it's important to like read as much as possible and find what makes sense to you so that you can understand why you're using them. But we wanted to go over real quick the big ones, and Katie mentioned one of them, and I also am an amethyst lover. But what Karen Ryan would define as the 5 master healers. So there's clear quartz, which is known as the universal healer. I'm a huge fan of clear quartz. I have a lot of clear quartz in my home, and I use some of it for my healing. Amethyst is my birthstone. That is the master. Hey, amethyst is the master transformer. And it's known to protect you from, it's known to protect you from drunkenness. And it's a great protection stone. Heck yeah. Here, I have my clear quartz. I don't have all my stuff in this room. There's my clear quartz.
I like that one. If you guys are just audio listening, like we're just showing our crystals, that one looks like a bubble. I'm here for it. It's so clear.
I know. I love spheres.
So clear.
It's a sphere.
Oh my gosh.
Crystal ball.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and I have my sodalite huge tower. Sodalite is great for communication. So I obviously keep it on my desk, especially when we're doing this podcast to help me with that. But so amethyst is a master transformer. Rose quartz obviously is great for the heart. Love stone. Rose quartz is pink. I love a good rose quartz. Hey, Katie's holding up one.
I use this almost all the time as almost always as an added stone. It just works really. I know that the clear quartz is the universal healer, but this rose quartz to me works like that. It is just an amplifier for me.
Yeah, quartz is an amplifier. And we can get into this too. So quartz is obviously in the ground. So if you have a house built over a catch of quartz and weird stuff happens in that house, imagine what that's like, right? So, but anyway, we can get into that another day. But rose quartz can be for self-love. It's not just romantical love, but it can be all about self-love, helping to heal that heart chakra, because I'm all about bringing it all together in practical ways you can use. Turquoise, a personal protector. I read in her book that if you're going for a job interview and you're traveling, or you're just traveling, have turquoise with you. It can protect you on long trips or in a job interview, things like that. Plus blue stones, again, blue is good for the throat chakra. So it can aid you with communication and healing the throat. Plus it's opaque. So opaque means that you can't see through the crystal. And that's also good for containing energy. But what were you going to say?
I was going to add something I learned about turquoise early on in COVID is it also can help with healing when it comes to the lungs and the upper respiratory as well. So especially nowadays where we have a little bit more to be concerned about with upper respiratory issues because of COVID, turquoise is a really good healing stone for the upper respiratory area. So
another good one just to add, I'll add it after I go over smoky quartz. Smoky quartz is quartz in general. I just really gravitate towards any variation of it, which is why I've always said it. I think I've been saying it wrong. Chalcedony. How did you say it?
Chalcedony.
I've always gravitated.
I don't know if it's right.
Chalcedony. I don't know. But I used to have a ring out of Chalcedony and I lost it. But in any case, smoky quartz is a great protector stone. It does need cleansed frequently because it can basically absorb. It's a great absorber. So if you have negative people in your house, I have smoky quartz in my office, on opposite sides of my door. So when people walk
Why did
through,
that sound bad? Like something you shouldn't have. I have smoky quartz in my office.
I totally have it. So, but you want to cleanse it just because it definitely contains energy. But lastly, what I wanted to say, in terms of really great for health, I have it on me a lot and I have it in my house, is kyanite. Kyanite is considered an amorphous crystal, which means there's really no defined geometric lattice structure. Those tend to protect you against disease, death, war, that kind of stuff, like very harmful energies. Those crystals are great, and it's black. I have black kyanite, so black is also known to be a protective color. And honestly, I feel like it's helped me dodge some sickness and things of that nature. But that's it on the 5 master healers. Those can be your starter kits for crystals if you're gonna dive into them, which I feel like is really fun.
10 out of 10. It's a problem. It's a problem.
It's a thing. I spent a lot of money on crystals. Way too much.
Since we really did spend a lot of time talking about crystals, which I think was really great, I think we should end on maybe a tapping exercise and then just call it a sode.
Call it a sode. What a sode it was. It's gonna be a great one. One for the books. But I'll explain a little bit about what tapping is, because I utilized it, and then I believe Katie has kind of come into the fold I've shared some tapping videos. It's amazing. I was insistent. I was like, just try it. But technically it's called emotional freedom technique, and it was developed as a way to basically get your nervous system to baseline. So we're all about intention, and my hope for all of you with this tapping, or maybe this is for someone specifically who's listening to our podcast, but you do tap on meridians within the body. So I will say that I'll kind of list them right now and then we'll get started. But when I say knife edge, it'll be the edge of your palm. That kind of, if you've been in martial arts, you can strike someone with a knife edge of your, so it's not, it's on your pinky side. And it's right along the edge of your palm, and you'll basically tap each of these points. It can be very slowly or it can be quickly, but it's literally, if you're on the webcast, you're seeing me, it's just tapping with the finger pads of your little fingers, and you don't have to do it hard. So knife edge is pinky side edge of your palm. Top of brows is right where your eyebrows start, right over your eyes there. Side of eyebrow will be at your temple, so I'll say temple. Under the eye is right above your cheekbones, right under the eye. Top of lip is right where your mouth meets your nose, forms that little crease. Under chin is right under the mouth where the chin starts. Clavicle is right on top of that collarbone. We can call it the collarbone. Under the armpit is basically like a 3-finger width below your armpit where it meets kind of the rest of your body. And then the top of the head is right where you might imagine the crown chakra at the crest of your skull. And those are the major points we'll be going through. So, always with tapping, you start kind of with a statement or an affirmation. So, I just feel that we need to tap maybe a little bit for an anxious spirit out there. So, start on knife edge. So, start tapping. I accept myself completely and fully. I accept that I've been feeling anxious lately. And I accept that I don't always act as my best self when I'm anxious. Top of eyebrow. But I understand that sometimes anxiety is just my body's way of keeping me safe. Side of eyebrow temple. Sometimes I understand that we perceive threats where there are none. But again, my body is just trying to keep me safe. Under the eye, I know that my anxiety will pass. It won't last forever. And I can breathe deeply and out fully in the moment. Under the nose, I'm still a good person, even though I get anxious. Under the mouth, sometimes my anxiety is just trying to tell me something, that I need to move through my day with more intention and that I need to put up boundaries. My anxiety on top of collarbone, my anxiety doesn't define who I am going forward today. And I can continue to breathe in deeply and practice mindfulness throughout the day. Under the armpit, I can turn my day around, even though I'm feeling anxious right in this moment. And I know that it won't last forever. Top of head, I'm in control of my anxiety and I decide where my day is going forward right now in this moment. And you can stop tapping, take a nice deep breath in and out. And now you can go through the rest of your day with more confidence and more calm. And that's a little intro into tapping. A great resource. Woo! A great resource will be tappingsolution.com, the tapping solution. The Ortners, so Nick and his sister, and I believe he has another brother, they are all really into it. Louise Hay was really into it, which I hope we can talk about her more in the podcast. But you can tap for other people. You can channel calm. You could channel Reiki through tapping with other people. And it's something that I know both of myself and Katie would like to add more into our practice going forward. So yeah, I hope
Thank
you
you
guys
so
enjoyed
much,
that
Kate.
mini
That was
tapping
awesome. That's it for energies. There's literally so many areas of energy healing. I have a list of them. We'll share it with you because we will spend way too much time reviewing them, but it is ongoing forever long. So maybe we can talk more about them in another episode as well.
That's all, folks. We thank you for joining us. We hope it was helpful. I am Kate.
And I'm Katie.
And we're signing off from Soul Isles.